This is the Chinese V-Day parade of 2025. These are all the UCAVs that have been presented, all of them never seen before in public. Everyone, including myself, is talking about this big UCAV, the Type B, but nobody really discussed all the other UCAVs. And there are two more that were not shown at the parade that definitely seem UCAVs that are never included in the big picture. What are their features? What is their mission? And more importantly, why do they exist? What is going on with all these new designs? We're going to cover all of them, and you won't find this stuff anywhere else on YouTube. Hi, I'm Gas, and this is Millennium 7. The Chinese presented 6 unmanned aerial vehicles at the parade. The first one is a GJ-11, or more likely the carrier variant called GJ-21. This is relatively well known for a Chinese system, and we recently covered it in a dedicated video. The second is technically new, but it really looks like an imported variant of the already well-known GJ-2, and it is not a UCAV, it is a male. The other 4, though, are definitely UCAVs, that is, uncrewed vehicles destined for combat, either air-to-air or air-to-ground. The naming is derived from the Chinese military aviation blog that listed them early on, giving a short description so we can identify them. We don't know the official names, so this is a good naming convention that others have used already, so we stick to it. Before starting, though, I want to stop a minute to acknowledge China's spectacular progress. China is now at the forefront of many technologies. But what if all this was lost and you had to rebuild a civilization from scratch? Well, it turns out that we got it covered by the sponsor of this video, the book. The book is an amazing project, and when the friends at Hungry Minds proposed a sponsorship, I jumped on the opportunity. For a book-loving person like me, the book is gorgeous. It feels like out of a sort of cyberpunk alternative universe. Look at these illustrations, each one is a joy for the eyes. Even the paper feels as an ancient book. You can spend days learning about all sorts of technology processes that made our civilization. It starts from the basic fire, food, ropes, shelter, and it ends with industry but also art, music, daily life, and so on. For example, I was pleasantly surprised to see the Joe harp covered, an instrument whose sound is haunting me since I first discovered it. And there's also a chapter dedicated to aviation, ça va sans dire, which is the part that many of you will be interested in. I mean, look at this aircraft, it is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. However, it doesn't end here. The book contains a quest for the reader. Just start looking for the pages with the butterflies. These mark the entry-level puzzles that lead to a series of advanced mysteries to solve. And solving several puzzles, you will gain access to a secret website, which is part of the journey. If you get to the end of the quest, you will become a member of the Order of Seekers, which so far has co-opted the only 7 people who have solved it completely. Definitely an elite group. If you become number 8, there is a mystery reward from Hungry Minds and forever bragging rights. The book is a unique item, nothing like this has ever been published before, and you can get your copy by clicking on the link in the description and taking advantage of the promo code, but be quick because it's only for a limited time. Please support the people who support me. The 2 most interesting UCAVs are the 2 at the back of the formation. The largest one is the Type B, we just discussed it in a dedicated video. It is, with all probability, a stealth supersonic long-range weapon carrier destined to operate either alone or in coordination with manned packages. Almost as big as the Type B, and potentially even more interesting, is the Type A that was displayed beside the Type B. Unfortunately, we don't have the same high-res pictures that we have for the Type B, but we can identify some interesting characteristics nonetheless. It is a stealth single-engine, very streamlined aircraft thanks to the absence of a cockpit. It features a lambda wing. There are no vertical empennages, which seems to be one of the characteristics that we associate to the 6th generation fighters. Or better, one of the features of the 6th generation is broadband stealth, and the absence of vertical surfaces is functional to achieve it. There are 3 mobile surfaces for each wing, 1 on the inside section and 2 on the swept-back section, probably working as flaperons. The wingtip is entirely mobile, like on the J50 and the Type B, and this seems to be one of the hallmarks of the Chinese 6th generation. I am not sure why the Chinese are investing heavily on this solution, that is, the aerodynamic advantage is not really clear to me. But there must be one since they start appearing in various designs. From my point of view, there are probably trade-offs. For example, the wing structural design must be more complex to accommodate the actuator and bear the loads caused by the wingtip and avoid aeroelastic issues. I would guess that those wings are particularly stiff and consequently somewhat heavier than the equivalent wing with conventional wingtips. Anyway, the so-called lambda wing finds its main justification in the capability to be integrated in low-visibility designs. Quite curiously, it seems that the wing mobile surfaces do not show any measure to reduce the hinge space reflection, either flexible cladding like on the J36 and the Type B, or resistive strips like we see on the American designs. In the Type A, we find some typical stealth features like plan for alignment and the fuselage chine. Serrations are visible in various points, including the undercarriage hatches and around the nozzle. The shape of the aircraft fuselage below the wing is the usual shape of many Chinese stealth designs, with a flat underside and inclined sides. The engine seems to be the same as the Type B, that is, should be either a WS-15 or a WS-10C. It is fed by 2 wedge intakes, which sometimes are also called carré intakes. These seem to avoid 90-degree angles, always for stealth reasons. The length of the aircraft is estimated to be around 14.5 meters. For an aircraft of this size, we can estimate the empty weight to be about 6 tons and the maximum takeoff weight to be around 12 to 13 tons. However, being a stealth aircraft that should carry all the payload internally, the practical takeoff weight should be quite lower. Unlike the Type B, the Type A is not showing many details. The nose wheel is single, so this is not a carrier design, but there are no visible electro-optic windows or radooms. There could be, but it is a really difficult call, a side weapon bay which is vaguely visible. There are no pictures of the aircraft on the side, so we don't know the weapon bay's configuration. During the parade, the official commentator said that this is an air superiority unmanned fighter, which is compatible with the overall configuration, but the aircraft seems in a less complete state than the Type B. I mean, there is always the possibility that the one shown in the parade is a stripped-down unit with no sensors to preserve security. After all, the GJ11 at the beginning of the group really seems a mock-up, but we know that they are in service or very close to entering service for the naval variant, so it is possible, and I would say almost certain, that what was presented was a mix of real aircraft and mock-ups. The Type D is much smaller than the Type A or B. It is a beautiful design, but it is hiding an enigma, sort of. It has the classic shape of a 6th generation fighter, the shape that we all thought it was going to be till about a year ago. It is a flat aircraft, this time with a squashed oval fuselage. The chine connects seamlessly with a delta wing with the trailing edge with a light inverse sweep. This time there are 2 canted vertical empennages, a classic solution which is also compatible with stealth. Surprisingly, like for the Type A, the mobile surface junction seems not to be curated for low observability. The air intake, which is proportionally quite large, is above the fuselage, which is again an ideal solution for stealth. Behind the intake there are what seem to be apertures, likely for communication systems. The engine exhaust is hidden above the fuselage tail, and the nozzle is a 2D nozzle like we have seen in other stealth designs. So far so good, but there are two very strange characteristics. The mobile surfaces actuators fairings are visible under the wing for the flaperons, but there is none for the rudder. What could this mean? Well, they could be contained inside the empennage, like for many full-size aircraft, but they seem really too thin. So I'm not really sure about what is going on here. But there is an even stranger point: the undercarriage. The hatches, albeit serrated as you would expect, are too small to house the undercarriage as it is shown. I don't understand how these legs could fold to fit into the room available inside, and particularly the nose wheel. Overall, this makes me think that the aircraft is indeed a mock-up, even considering the lack of sensors, and in fact we see no radome or electro-optics, but also the lack of details within the undercarriage hatches. So the undercarriage seems to be just notional, and it was installed for the parade probably. The nose wheel is actually a double wheel, which as usual would suggest a naval aircraft, but I don't know whether in this case it could really be meaningful or not. In any case, it doesn't have the launch bar. Considering the general configuration, this doesn't really seem a CCA equivalent to me. It seems more a stealthy intelligent aircraft, potentially for naval use. As I said before, the fact that they're showing a mock-up doesn't necessarily mean that the aircraft is just a design. It might well be in test or even in service. The Type C is somehow different from all the others. It is clearly not a high-speed design, but it shows quite a few stealth features. The configuration is pretty standard, with a distinct fuselage and a V-tail. In this case, the proportions with the undercarriage seem right, so this may indeed be a production unit, but the pictures that we have are not high resolution, so we can't get into details too much. I still think, though, that this is indeed a mock-up, because I don't see rudders on the tail, and in general it looks too smooth. The curious design element of the Type C is the intake position, which seems to be too close to the aircraft nose. On a drone with a dorsal intake, it is probably wasting some internal space. This seems to be an aircraft of the same class of the American CCA. And probably this is designed as a weapon or sensor carrier for air-to-ground operations. Anyway, we really need to see something more in the future to make a decent analysis for this one. And this is it, you may think, but no, not really. For reasons that we don't know, there are two drones that were not shown at the parade, despite having been taken to Beijing and seemingly prepared to be in the show. However, they were spotted by onlookers and enthusiasts, and the pictures have been posted online. This is the Type A, which again seems another CCA class aircraft. The general configuration is classic, single engine, dorsal intake, with a swept-back wing and a V-tail. It has a clear fuselage and a clear separate wing and tail, so no blending in this case. It seems a high subsonic speed weapon carrier, possibly more suited to air-to-ground missions. However, there are several very bizarre solutions implemented on this aircraft. Here we have a good picture of the tail section. The first thing to notice is the strange sawtooth on the trailing edge. It could be a stealth-related solution, because otherwise it is difficult to understand why it was necessary. I mean, that wing must be structurally quite complex. The other puzzling element is the split rudder on each empennage of the V-tail and the absolutely gigantic size of the actuator's fairings. Again, it is difficult to understand what the designers are trying to accomplish here. Anyway, I think that we see in this case enough detail for this aircraft to be the real thing and not a mock-up like some of the others. And then there is this one, the most mysterious of all. It is the Type F. We only have a few blurry images of the aircraft wrapped into tarpaulins, so it is probably not worth spending too much time, but now we can be sure that it exists. That was a pretty long walkthrough of all the UCAVs we have seen at the parade, but it doesn't end here. Please note that the Chinese have presented various UCAV designs in other occasions. This entire industry sector is furiously boiling in China at a pace that can't be equaled anywhere else. If I had to trace a parallel, it reminds me of what was happening in the United States in the 50s and the 60s, when every year there was a new design, always evolving. The scale in China, though, is enormous, and nobody can foresee where it is going to end up. And, well, let's all hope that is going to end well. Thank you very much for watching this video and giving me your time. Your support is essential, and a big thank you goes to all those who have already supported the channel on Patreon by being a member or by any of the other means available. You are absolute stars. You are those who keep the show running. And if you can't support the channel financially, and please do it only if you can afford it, please subscribe if you haven't, but also interact with the video. Leave a comment, hit like, hit the bell, or just share the video with someone else who could be interested. So this is it for today. We're not done with the Chinese parade, but this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.